have to mix it up. Otherwise, apparently you cannot do that. And somebody will tell you. Somebody will say something to you.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. Before we get started this evening, I want to thank John Goosemer for doing about triple duty here tonight, getting the tech set up as well as running the cameras for our live stream. So he'll be running in and out of here as needed. Hopefully, we'll get somebody from UPTV here to help us out. Roll call, please.
Member Stanton?
Yep.
Member Jones?
Here.
Member Baxley?
Here.
Member Langendorf here. President Pulowski?
Here.
Vice President Exum?
Here.
And Member Hickson?
Here.
There is one small modification to tonight's agenda, and that is for study topic 7.1. It refers to approval for item 9.5, and that should be 9.4. So again, 7.1 should refer to item 9.4. Is there anyone here present wishing to make a statement before the board? If anybody wishes to do so, please fill out a goldenrod sheet in the back of the room and hand it to our recording secretary, Lori Johnson. Seeing no one, there is a call for an executive session after tonight's meeting for the purpose of litigation and discussing potential litigation against the district. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, our first study topic tonight is a school improvement plan presentation.
Good evening. I'm Chastity Beckless, Director of Equity and School Improvement.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Jackson. I'm the proud principal of Dr. Williams Elementary School.
Just keep going. Click through. Okay, there we go. Oh, sorry. All right, so I will be presenting a couple of schools today, and then I will come back on the 20th to present the remaining schools. And I also have the wonderful Danielle with me, and she'll present on her specific school improvement plan because her school is designated as intensive. And so we're just starting with the mission and vision of USD. I wanted to make sure that we captured some beautiful photos of our friends and community members and family members on this as well. Some things that stand out to me as we think about our school improvement goal and as it aligns to our mission and vision is really about that commitment to educational excellence and to make sure that all of our learners acquire knowledge, develop skills, and build character to achieve personal greatness and to help create a better global society. So there are a couple of things that we're really excited about rolling out this year, in addition to the school improvement plans with some supports for our school. We have a focus on making sure we have high quality instruction and education for our students. And so there's been a couple of rollouts this year with curriculum. Last year was illustrative for math. This year we have HMH for CKLA literacy. And we're really excited about that as well to make sure that we have curriculum that will create better outcomes for our students as well. And then there's also been a commitment to equity from the board and from our community members and from us as well. Part of my role as well be looking at equity from a lens of not just teaching and learning, but systems, and really thinking about professional learning with an equity lens and other areas as well. So one of the things that I really wanted to pull out here is our equity commitment. And we recognize that our students have various real life experiences and personal characteristics that will require diverse pathways to success. So as I roll out some of our school improvement plans, there will be differences because of the difference of schools and their body and their needs and the leadership as well. So something that's new in our school improvement process that you all probably didn't have access to before or know before, we shifted to a template that everyone is using the same template, and we got it straight from ISB because we do have a few schools that have a designation of intensive or comprehensive or targeted, and so we all wanted to be on the same page with the template we use and what the template is asking of us, creating SMARTY goals. And so we have equity goals included as well. We have goals that specifically promote and advance equity and inclusion, and goals that will focus on closing the achievement gap. When thinking about root causes and why our student data is what it is, we have some underlying issues. And so one of them I've already talked about with the lack of standards-based curriculum. And so when our teams met earlier this summer, that is some of the work that they did, getting stakeholders feedback for what are some of the things that are keeping us to meet the needs of our students. So we know that there have been culture and climate issues, teacher turnover, assessment issues with just the rollout of assessments or making sure that all of our students are getting their accommodations when taking an assessment. Absenteeism is a huge one, so you'll see that everyone has an absenteeism goal. Leadership development, and we'll talk about how we're really increasing that this year as well. Accountability, and with this new curriculum and the one from last year, we want to make sure that we are implementing the curriculum with fidelity. So some structures of support as the Director of Equity and School Improvement that I will help the team with. I started July 1, so some of the process was already conducted with their teams prior to me starting. But we have met a lot over the summer, and I've given feedback, and we've talked about like what this could potentially look like for next year. So we want to ensure that we are setting clear SMARTY goals. We want to make sure that we're increasing our communication around goal progress to all stakeholders. We want to make sure that we'll have regular check-ins, and so I will be at every SIT team meeting per school, but I'll also be meeting with principals, especially if they have an intensive or comprehensive or targeted designation, to ensure that we're on the right track of removing ourselves from that designation. So we'll do some backwards designing and look at our IAR cutoff scores or what made them that particular designation to ensure that we are working backwards to get out of that designation and move towards commendable. And we'll continue to identify root causes. That's super important so that we can course correct. One thing I always say is I'm going to give high support, but we also have high expectations like we do for our students as well. There are other amazing people who will also be supporting our schools and especially our leaders, and that was part of some of the root causes, our leadership development. And so we're excited to have all of these people. I'm super excited to work alongside them as well. We have Dr. Laura Taylor coming back to the district, and she will be working specifically with principals and being their evaluator as well. And then we have Dr. Deacon, we have Guadalupe Ricconi, Ms. Yvonda Smith, and Ms. Dionne Webster, and all of them have been assigned to schools specifically for that role of support. And so their charge has been to spend some of their time in their role at those school sites, working with the principals, supporting them, or filling in as needed. So these are some guiding questions that we are going to think about as we work through this school improvement process. At the student learning directors or the curriculum and instruction department, we're going to be thinking about three things from a global aspect. Are we living out our mission and vision for the success of our students? What does the data tell us about school leadership, staff practices, and student progress? And what are the needs of our leaders and staff and how they need to be supported for success with their SMARTY goals? Another thing that we'll think about is we're doing that work, and we'll do walkthroughs as well. We will start implementing this walkthrough that we co-created, and principals were able to give feedback, and we're working with teachers as well to make sure that they are aware, so we're in the classrooms and we can see the implementation with fidelity of the curriculum resources, and that we can make sure that we are providing professional learning that identifies the root causes at those schools based off the data that we're gathering, but also the principal data and feedback from staff when they're doing surveys. So school improvement teams, these are the questions that they will have on their set agendas. And so that's one thing across the board. We are really trying to be one band, one sound, and they'll have these questions that they need to kind of dig deep into at each of their monthly SIT team meetings. And so what does the data tell us about student success and areas of concern? There's always some piece of data that we could be looking at, whether it is quantitative or qualitative, to really think about where our students are and where we need to course correct, where we need to celebrate, and where we need to go. And so what does the data tell us about staff practice progress? In each SIT plan, there are some key activities where they talk about adult practices. And so we will be monitoring how are our adults living out those practices. Which ones are leveraging and giving us the best outcomes for students. And so we'll be continuing to have that conversation as well. And what are the needs of the staff and how do they need to be supported for success with the SMARTY goals? So again, thinking about what staff needs are, as we're thinking about what leaders need. And then we have at the team level, so grade level teams meet a couple of times a week, and rolling out really this structure of PLCs where there are also important questions that they need to be asking as a team for their classroom or for their grade level. What is it that we want our students to know and be able to do? How will we know if each student has learned it? How will we respond when some students do not learn it? And how will we extend the learning for students who still need to grasp the information? And so all these levels, we're hoping to be more data focused, really thinking about what our students need, what our staff need, what our leaders need as well to get to our goals. So these are some components that school teams went through, I wanna say May, June. There was data review and they saw the achievement gap. So they did an achievement gap analysis. There was a lot of data presented to them about their specific students, population outcomes, and so that was on chronic absenteeism, academic with NWEA MAP, and then there was also some data that was specific by demographics. So they were asked to identify strengths and weaknesses for their school and create 2 to 3 SMARTY goals. This is all in the template. Assessment targets and objectives were also created with their teams, and adult and student performance measures were created. So not only are we looking at what the outcomes are for students, but what do the adults need to do in order to create those outcomes. And then we also had action steps containing indicators of success and who is responsible and timelines. So first we'll start globally as what are the district's overall goals? How can we model this process as well to support growth of our leaders in our schools? And so as we talked, we created at central office a couple of goals by looking at all of the school improvement plans, seeing what their kind of average percentage increase was. So it was important to us that we did a couple of things with the school district goals. The first goal, priority goal, is MAP growth. So by spring of 2025, students in grades 1st through 10th will have an overall increase of 15% of students meeting or exceeding their growth goals in ELA based on NWA MAP. Currently, from spring data, we have 40% of our students meeting. So by spring of 2025, we of course want to see at least 55%. By spring of 2025, students in grades K through 10, if you notice, kindergarten is included here because kindergarten does take math in the fall. And then kindergarten does take math, but it's not the same for ELA, so that's why we started with first grade. We'll have an overall increase of 15%, meeting or exceeding their growth. Right now, we have 42% of our students meeting in K through 10. And so, again, we want to increase that rigor by pushing it to 15%, more of our students meeting that. Then we have priority group 2 that pulls out some of our priority groups. When we talk about our commitment to equity, and when we're thinking about who is what we say furthest from justice, there are some groups who are struggling, and there's a huge disproportionality in outcomes. And so by spring 2025, we will increase by 15% the proficiency in math determined by IAR for grades 3rd through 8th for our African American students, and increase by 10% the proficiency in math determined by IAR for grades 3 through 8th for our Latinx students. And this is really about closing that achievement gap and making sure we are, our students are on the track for proficiency. By spring 2025, we will increase by 10% the proficiency in ELA determined by IAR for 3rd through 8th grade for African American students and our Latinx students. And so IAR, again, is about proficiency. We want to see, and we don't get those scores until about July or afterwards. So that will just be a snapshot in time, but it is super important that we know how our students are doing on grade level standards. Then we have our last goal is really focusing on the chronic absenteeism. So we want to decrease it from currently 49% to 34% by spring 2025. Some of the key activities that as district leaders we're going to engage in and commit to are our walkthroughs to drive professional development in our conversations in curriculum and instruction. We're going to create data analysis protocols that schools will be leading and doing the work in. Student growth goals focused on priority groups, and so we pulled out those priority groups. That's the data that we will also continue to look and dig deeper into. Attendance goals monitored by our SIT teams, and so I'm meeting with SIT regularly, monthly, so I'll bring back, are we on track? Are we off? Here are some things or key strategies that the schools are doing to make sure that they're on track to meet their chronic absenteeism goal by the end of the year. We're going to have data-focused SIT meetings, again, that identify those root causes, and we answer those questions at a high level and ensure that schools are consistently looking at data to make adjustments as needed. And we're going to provide professional development and support for the curriculum, but not just to staff, but to our leaders as well. And so as they walk into classrooms, they know what they should be seeing or expecting. So they are learners just like our teachers and staff, and so are we. We're learning the curriculum as well, so that we're well-versed and we can be of a support. So the first school we have up, and this is the Lille SIT team created these goals by looking at their data. As I mentioned earlier, they have a growth ELA goal of, by the spring of 2025, 55% of 1st through 5th grade students will meet or exceed their projected growth in ELA as measured by NWA. They have a math goal as well that mirrors that, with 55% of students 1st through 5th grade meeting their NWA goal. They have a chronic absenteeism goal. They want to reduce that by 8%. And some of their key activities are monthly data reviews, implementing and monitoring the curriculum by doing walkthroughs. They are going to create optimal testing environments for all, so that's really getting that buy-in for staff, but also for students. They're going to include goal setting with students, text practices, and making sure that our students who need accommodations, 504 or IAP, are receiving those in their tested environment as well. They're going to review pre-unit practice problems and post-unit assessments to measure student growth, and this is specific to illustrative math. And they're going to monitor and record keeping students attended during grade level collaborations. So that is a topic of conversation consistently, those couple of times that they are meeting a week. And they're also going to do home visits to families of chronic absent students. The next school is Urbana Middle School. So Urbana Middle School created these goals as a team. By spring 2025, the percentage of students meeting their projected growth will increase by at least 8%. In math, that mirrors the same. They want to increase their growth by 8% as well. For chronic absenteeism, they also kept it consistent with an 8% decrease. Some key activities that the middle school has committed to was reviewing map data in various ways that will impact student learning, all teachers, implementing and monitoring the curriculum with fidelity with admin walkthroughs. Teachers and admin will continue implementing the curriculum with fidelity and designing plans for accommodations for diverse learners through professional development. We have some great professionals coming in to support the district with this as well, and curriculum collaboration. So not only do we have coaches through the curriculum, but we also have co-teaching support. So as we think about our diverse learners and co-teaching practices, we're really strengthening those as well. Peer observations is another way that they want to engage in learning from each other, but also making sure that they can support each other. ELA and SLA teachers and admin will participate in professional development. So they're committing to all of them doing professional development to continue to learn the curriculum as well. Dr. Martin Luther King has a MAP growth goal in ELA, and they pulled out some priority and targeted groups. So by spring of 2025, 80% of the 21 targeted African American students in grades 3rd and 4th will meet or exceed their projected growth goal on MAP and reading from fall to spring. For MAP growth math, 80% of African American students in grades 2 through 5th will make 10% or more growth in math as assessed by NWA MAP data, fall to spring. And so what Dr. Martin Luther King did was they really looked at their data in ELA and saw that 3rd through 4th grade, specifically African American students were struggling. So they made that their goal for this year. And then when they looked at their math, they also saw students struggling, but it was 2nd through 5th grade. For chronic absenteeism, they want to decrease it by 50%. So they want to go from 30% chronic absenteeism to 15% from fall to spring. Some of their key activities: peer learning walks, professional development, implementing tier 2 interventions in the classroom. So when we're specifically thinking about students that are struggling and those targeted 21 students, there are going to be some interventions in place for those students. They're going to have an action plan in Panorama to make sure that we are keeping data and tracking progress of those students. Teachers will use high leverage practices as listed. Student engagement is a huge one, flexible grouping, prioritizing short and long-term goals for their classroom outcomes. They're going to do math walkthroughs, and they're going to gather data and monitor student progress in Ames Webs Plus, looking at the MAP scores and unit checkpoints. They also have some key strategies or activities for chronic absenteeism. After 3 unexcused absences, there will be an attendance review meeting with the students' team. So they have a way of triggering who would get attendance review, and then they'll talk about it as a team, and then they'll have their SCAs check Skyward attendance and report daily and make those phone calls and support the teams with really ensuring that those students are there after those 3 unexcused absences.
All right, good evening. So as an Illinois Empower Intensive School, one of my goals is to come and make sure that I'm here to present our school improvement plan to you so that you have awareness of what we're working on, but also knowledge that we do work with our site person from ISB and meet with them twice a month, so that this plan has already gone before them, but it is very important that we also bring it before you all for approval and that I come and kind of be able to speak to that and hopefully respond to any questions that you have regarding the goals that we've set. So it's not that my other colleagues did not want to be here. I just have to support my principals. I was required to be here to present this to you all, okay? So I just want to make sure you know why I'm actually here. Of course, we are continuing to focus on literacy, math, and absenteeism, chronic absenteeism as well. So our goal is by May of 2025, 44% of first through fifth grade students will meet their English language arts growth projection as seen on NWEA MAP, which is an overall increase of 10%. So we wanted to make sure that we could define for you what percentage of change that was, and that's how we decided on the 44% as opposed to rounding that up to 45. As our team discussed it, we really do want this to be a rigorous goal, but we also want to see something where we can see success. So we want to make sure that it is also attainable for us. Following along that same plan and process, we looked at our math data and wanted to see a shift of 46% of our students in first through fifth grade really being able to meet their math projected growth as well. And so again, that is a 10% increase or change. So we were at 36% in the spring, and we're really hoping that with the implementation of both our continuing our illustrative math curriculum and the new implementation of CKLA Amplify, that we will be able to not only meet this goal, but far surpass it. But again, our goal is to initially get to that first level of achievement. We know that as we continue to increase the growth for our students, we will begin to be able to increase their proficiency, will also help us be able to close that achievement gap, and disparity that we have within the district, but specifically at our targeted school. And then related to chronic absenteeism, this is a huge indicator that can designate a school. Even if you see a significant increase in the number of students who are at that proficiency, attendance has a huge important factor in that percentage. And so one of the things that we really wanted to be mindful of is recognizing that that 20%, when you're above 20%, it really impacts the score. So we wanted to see a decrease of our chronically absent students from 34% going down by 14% to get us to that threshold percent. We know that every percentage point over 20% is contributing to our designation. And those are some of the targeted conversations that we've been able to have with Dr. Combs. If we can really impact how many students we have present every day, we can impact their academic achievement and also increase their educational learning outcomes. So some things that our team, and I have to shout out our team, we had a phenomenal team that came together at the end of May to really think about what were going to be our priorities. What do we need to do? So we focused on making sure that we have school-wide optimal testing conditions. So as a team, we will come meet with our teachers, talk about what is required for testing, what the classroom needs to be like for it to be a place for our students to be able to successfully be administered tests, as well as what are some things that we can commit to ensuring each time so not just for the fall, these will be the conditions that we set up for fall, winter, and spring testing benchmark windows. As well as that, we want to make sure that we include our students in the process, that we're setting goals with them. So prior to our winter benchmark, we will not only review their fall data, but go back and look at it again before they test in the winter to say, we set a goal in the fall that you would increase by maybe 6 points. Let's go back and look at that. Remember, we're really trying to get an increase of 6 points, bringing back their buy-in so that they can take the test seriously and recognize that they set their own goal in collaboration with the teachers so that it can really help them from avoiding that rapid testing rate that happens so often. They get bored and they'd rather just click and a sloth will pop up and tell them to slow down because they're going a little quickly. But then even beyond that, we know that a lot of that work is going to happen through our PLC structure where staff are really coming together and looking at the data. So we will think about how can we plan incentives to celebrate the success of the students and then be able to come back and plan for what do we need to do next time? How did that go? Did they meet the goals? The purpose is not to celebrate a student who met and not celebrate someone who didn't meet, but that the whole class will be celebrated for all of their achievement with taking the test and trying their very best on the assessment. When we were thinking about this, we called this mapping our progress. So we were trying to play on the acronym of the MAP test and really thinking about how can we illustrate this within our building so we are held accountable to the outcomes that we have, and it's a visual reminder and representation of our school, of where we started and where we will be going. And then it's very critical that we go back and look at our pacing guides. One of the things that we have learned as we've gone to the trainings for CKLA is that making sure that we're staying on pace will allow us to stay true and authentic to the curriculum. And if we get off pace and we're not having those discussions, then we can miss some of those critical instructional opportunities that we provide to the students. So we've committed to making sure that we do those check-ins during our PLC collaboration times as a pure accountability measure, with also the support of the administrators in the building. It is not that you have to be on this page, but we can't be at the end of first quarter and still be where we would expect to be a week into the school year. So we just want to make sure that we are following the curriculum, implementing it with fidelity, but also supporting each other through that process, through coaching and our ongoing professional development that has been planned and mapped out for us by the district. Additionally, we will ensure that we are making sure to follow up with our students. We know that our teachers, our case managers, are often the first site, right, for the families with our students. And so we want them to be reaching out and saying, I noticed your child wasn't here yesterday and they weren't excused in Skyward. Is everything okay? That nurturing environment that we want our kids to continue to come back to. We want the families to know we noticed the child wasn't there. We're here to support them, but it'll also hopefully increase that return rate, because if you miss one day, say you miss Wednesday, you didn't hear from anybody, you got the robocall, but everybody gets that, then you miss Thursday. Who wants to go back to school on a Friday? But hopefully with the teacher calling and saying, we really missed you, we've been doing so many exciting things, that will help us with the family and the student returning back to school as soon as they're safe and well to be there and not having those extended days out, which contribute back to our chronic absenteeism. And then for accountability, I know the district is really focused on us being accountable with our students, our staff, and our families. We are going to review our chronic absenteeism data and make it very visible to share with our families as well as our teachers each month, so we can see that progress throughout the year, as opposed to waiting until May and we're like, ooh, we've already missed it. But hopefully keeping it out in the front and really emphasizing our focus on attendance will make it better for our outcomes when we get to the spring, because we are all talking about attendance. It's already on our magnet for this year. So that district push followed by the building level push will be very impactful for all of our students. And then last but not least, of course, a part of that PLC time is we will come back and talk about our students who are having some significant issues with getting to school regularly, so that we can make sure that our tier 2 supports are in place through collaboration with our student engagement advocate, as well as our attendance secretary. We have a process for notifying our families, and really our goal is to make sure the families know we're here to support them. If there are reasons why they're not at school, what can we do to help? Because we need them there in order to not only decrease our chronic absenteeism, to really make sure that their student is continuing in their learning and developing throughout the school year.
Okay, and so with all of those SIT plans, we want to make sure that we are living out the vision. So just really thinking about, this is really so that our students at graduation or college and career ready, as you see the two different pictures, we want to make sure that we are living out our vision. So next steps, kind of like school leaders and teams will receive that consistent support and feedback from their director partners. Lots of schools are already implementing some visuals of their school improvement goals, and they have those specific action steps. We are going to make sure that we are celebrating when we are making those goals, to create some buy-in and excitement about that as well. We're going to have consistent communication and focus on school goals with all stakeholders. And so we constantly ask, how are you reporting out to your staff? How are you reporting out to your families on the progress? And then I know that we'll be back here as well, reporting out to you all as well on our progress. So a big thing is, I like to say, not letting the urgent eclipse the important. As leaders, we know there are so many things that come up, but if we don't keep our eyes focused on the goals and our key strategies that we created collaboratively as a team, then we lose focus and we're off track. And so that's a big push that I will probably be putting on t-shirts and giving them to everyone that I can. But we want to make sure that we have specific planning our time accordingly. So time management as a leader is huge. Are you putting those walkthroughs on your calendar? Are you making sure that you have your monthly meetings already set up? So that's one thing that I've done with schools is I'm like, okay, nobody can have the meeting on the same day. Let's plan it out for the year. Yours is going to be on the first Tuesday so that I'm sure that I can make those meetings as well. And again, even if I'm just there to take notes, I'm present in the space and I know what's going on at each school. And if I need to push, if I need to celebrate, that I'm there to support them as well, or just to be a thought partner. And again, how do we report out to those who want to know, how are we doing? Do we know how we're doing? I think that's the most important part. And if we know how we're doing, what are we doing about it? And then a huge thank you, of course, to all of the SIT teams. This is a collaborative effort, and we want to make sure as we really work to strengthen this process too for next year, that those who are involved, their voices are heard. And so this was huge for us this year, making sure that SIT teams got back together and were able to talk and discuss any feedback that they received in order to feel good about the goals that they will have to present to their schools and ultimately maybe to families, and also get some buy-in from our students, as we said, with setting goals as well. And then a big thank you to our district student learning department as well, because creating the walkthrough tool, all of the work that they're doing to support leaders. This year, as we're moving forward with school improvement and just leadership development, has been awesome for me to come in and work with them, and also to be alongside them in this process as another person who supports our leaders across the district and staff as well. So that concludes our school improvement.
Board members, any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Some of them are kind of basic questions, so I apologize. PLC, what's it stand for?
Professional learning community.
Okay, so that's the whole school? That means the whole school?
No, it's typical. Oh,
I was going to say, the whole school is technically a professional learning community, but that's really when they're with their grade level teams and whatever support staff for that specific grade level, because then they're looking at, okay, in fourth grade, what's going on in fourth grade? How are our students doing? So that's like their own little professional learning community with their colleagues.
Okay, and so then the grade level teams are all of the teachers at that grade level?
Correct.
And does it include the support staff? Will they be at those meetings also? You know,
Like
like
the
the
spec-
teacher aides or something like, or the special ed teachers, or?
Yes, as much as possible. With paraprofessionals, their schedule can get a little tricky from what I know, but definitely the special education teacher, if they're not seeing students, we try to make sure that they have that collaborative planning time. So their curriculum, tier 1 teachers, anybody who's supporting that grade level and those students will be present.
And,
Yes. Right.
Oh, as much as the schedule allow. That's the disclaimer at the bottom with the asterisk.
Yes.
sure, right, okay. And in the slide with the common root causes, and by the way, I had a bunch of questions, but you answered a bunch too, so I crossed some out. But the climate and culture, I would like to know, do you have specific issues with climate and culture that you're going to look at in order to know if you're making progress? You know, like we want to increase this particular behavior and decrease this particular behavior. What do you mean just by climate and culture?
Yeah, so I can answer this. I think so. Dr. Ivy Tatum has worked a lot with specific schools this summer and had meetings with their deans and admin, kind of prior to me starting as well, to make sure that they had a like culture action plan. We're thinking about, I know a couple of us directors reported out to admin just last week about student discipline. So it is really about us tightening up our systems and creating kind of a guideline for if a student does this, we call it the behavior response continuum. Here are some logical consequences. Here are some restorative conversations, interventions, and strategies that you can use. So I think right now we're thinking about it is not no one, but a lot of people aren't following the system, and we're finding that there are discrepancies. This school would maybe code it as this, and then this was the student's consequence. So we're trying to really get back to this is how we respond to behavior as a district. Of course, there are schools in particular where there's more disproportionality, and so I oversee the school improvement plan that we have to give to ISB each year as well. So I presented that last week to admin and really talked about like what their role and responsibilities are within that. But the biggest thing is going to be their MTSS, multi-tiered systems of supports, and our PBIS that's being rolled out this year too, for that like positive and proactive engagement in classroom and systems wide. That's going to be like their indicators of who keeps popping up and what are we doing about it, so that within the school there's also a system to respond.
Okay. Can I keep going? Okay. The leadership development and the leadership development team, I was wondering, are they there to help develop leadership in principals or in teachers, or, you know, what are they, with whom are they working?
So this team specifically is working with administrators, so principals and assistant principals. We do have spaces and meetings across the year where we will have like all like teacher leaders and educational leaders present to do some development and data analysis as well. Like in program council, we have principal meetings. So there are different spaces, but this specific team is charged with supporting and developing assistant principals and principals.
Okay, and then all of these people have had very positive experiences as principals?
So not all of them have been principals. Lupe Ricconi has been a director in our district for many, many years, but she's never actually been a building principal. The goal of having growing our leaders is helping them become instructional leaders in all they do, which also trickles down to our teachers, which trickles down to our students.
So it's the principals and assistant principals, and then they would become better leaders, developing leaders for the teachers.
More
Correct.
intentional leaders focused on all of our goals, so yes.
Right, okay. Let's see. I'm wondering why with the map testing and it could be that I don't understand map testing because I haven't seen the map test. Why are we concentrating only on the academic improvement goal and not a academic achievement goal? And I'm wondering what is a projected or an expected academic improvement goal. For instance, let's say I'm a fourth grade student and I'm working at second grade level in reading. Is my expected academic achievement 1 year, therefore I would move up to third grade academic achievement? And so I would have met my goal because I increased 1 year? Or how do we figure that academic achievement?
Well, the wonderful intelligence smart testing people figure that out. But MAP is an adaptive assessment, and so students do take the assessment, and it gives them a couple of questions to figure out what their level is. One thing about MAP is, I try to describe it as, it's who all jumps in the pool, right? So MAP is not nationally given and mandated. And so lots of school districts do use it, but say if there are 20,000 participants, they are scoring what this student's kind of average, what they call a RIT score, is against the 20,000 people who are in it. When we think about achievement, that's a different assessment, the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, and that is IAR. That's why we put out that priority group to talk about proficiency. And so MAP and IAR are different assessments. MAP is not mandated, IAR is mandated. But one thing that is going to drive instruction and give us more information throughout the year, because we can give that assessment, is MAP. And so that's why we think about their targets or their growth goals. Of course, we want our students to exceed them, because sometimes you're right, they are a second grader who, or a fourth grader who may be on a second grade level, and MAP might tell them you need to hit this target, but it still could be below level. And so this is why we try to push the rigor in exceeding those goals to close that gap. And then those student profiles will give them, here's a trajectory of the college and career readiness of this particular student. So it can help us really backwards design or map out what is the growth we need that student to catch up on. And it gives more instructional tools and information for our staff. IAR, they just give us a spreadsheet and they say, this kid got a 4, this kid got a 3, and it's not as useful for driving instruction and really being data focused. Like, yes, we'll have who made proficiency, who didn't, and we can kind of target some of those groups or those kids. But when we think about a school improvement plan, we want to be able to have those checkpoints throughout the year, and MAP gives us access to give the test multiple times throughout the year, so we'll do it 3 times, and to be able to say, okay, these kids are on track to proficiency, or these students will need to exceed their goal, or here's a group of students who are really struggling and we need to target them more evasively, right? Or, and these group of students, we can project that on IR, because MAP will give us that information, they might be below the standards or they're meeting the standards. So they're kind of connected, but one just is a more powerful tool to really help us push instruction, provide professional learning, and really say, oh, this student has a gap in these core standards.
So if is a growth, I'm sorry,
Nope.
is a growth goal expectation then, is the goal 1 year by the end of a year?
So if I could just add in a little bit about what ISB, I think we shifted. I've unfortunately been in this process for a while, so they actually shifted. While they are measuring proficiency, the way that they determine if a school is commendable is by a cut score, and it's based off of the amount of growth that has been achieved from A to B for that student. And so when you see a significant amount of growth, you can still be a commendable school, even if your proficiency rate isn't as high as we would all love it to be. And so I think we were able to shift from looking at proficiency to looking at growth, because we recognize, and the state recognizes, we have to continue to make significant growth before we can get to that proficiency level. So they've even adjusted their scores on how they're calculating commendable. It's not just based off proficiency. It's really looking at how much growth was achieved from student A, Danielle Jackson, to Danielle Jackson the next time she takes the assessment. And so that's when we were able to then move from at the district to looking at growth, because we need to see that growth. And we might not make our goals, unfortunately, that attainability, we might not get there to proficiency if we aren't making sure to account for the growth. And so once the state did that, I think we felt like we had the okay to move forward with looking at that projected growth, because we know that's going to help us get to that proficiency over time.
And to your point too, if Jennifer comes in the fall and her score is a 235, it will project, this is how much growth she should make within this school year. And so it'll say by fall or by spring, she should grow 7 points. And so then that becomes the student's growth goal. And so our goal is to make sure the student knows that we're empowering them, and that we meet those growth goals or exceed them. Like, hey, you made 7, but we really want you to make 9 or 10. And so it really starts when they take that fall assessment. That will give us what their growth goals should be for that school calendar year.
And you can use it to predict
Correct.
proficiency.
Yep.
Okay, great, that really helps me. I was also curious about King, and I know there's no one here from King, but there are no goals for English language learners?
There were not pulled out priority groups. I can take that question back to the King group, and when we come back on the 20th, and we can bring the response then. So your question is, will there be goals for English language learners?
Well, yeah, because all of the slides talked about African Americans. And rather than either neighborhood kids who aren't African Americans or English language learners.
So
And I was just
typically,
wondering.
King data, those students are not the students that are not meeting expectations. So our international students and our ELL students, the international students at King are a unique group because many of them are coming from professor households. They come from other countries with a very different trajectory for learning. And so those students are not the focus because they are typically meeting and exceeding their goals. The black students at King are unfortunately the students who are not meeting proficiency in all their areas. So.
Yeah. So that's more so, because that wasn't true when I was there. I mean, there were a number that were.
Sure, there's
Not
probably
making
some,
goals.
I'm not saying all of them, but as a large group of students, the black students at King are the ones that are underperforming.
Sure.
And-
And I'm
And I was going
curious-
to say by ISB, they're considered a targeted student specifically for their black students. And so
Yes.
that's why you see that goal. ISB says you have a large number of your black students not meeting proficiency or outcomes. And so that's why they pulled out some groups of students specifically at 3rd and 4th, I would say, because those are the critical years where we really determine that being that literacy focused, and if students are going to be able to read, by the end of 12th grade.
And the 21 students who were chosen to be the target students, I'm curious, were they the very low achieving students, or were they the students on the bubble that we used to call on the bubble? So we were just going to try and get them above the.
To my understanding, I think it's the latter, the bubble students, because they are receiving those tier kind of 2 interventions of support.
Anyone else have a question? Go ahead, Sherry.
One thing I noticed about King, it was the only school that would compare the fall to the spring, and the other goals from the other schools from spring to spring. So I was wondering, with one of the common root causes we've always heard about is mobility, and what effect does it have that our students don't look the same in the fall as they did in the spring before, that maybe up to 20% of them have left the district, and we have a different group. So I was wondering how that affects also the ability to raise the scores by a certain percentage.
So I'm sorry, I do want to clarify that all of us are doing fall to spring. So theirs just read a little differently. It just says by spring 2025, but these are fall to spring goals. Secondly, though, when you create a testing session, or like you're uploading kids to NWA MAP, it will ask you, like, you want the kids who are, let's say we have 1,000 kids in the fall. Well, if we don't have 1,000 in the spring, it gives us the data for the kids that we have throughout the process. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So mobility could be impacting. Hopefully they're going to other schools within our district, and we still have that data and trying to create that longitudinal data on that on that student. But it doesn't impact significantly, because it'll say, like, if you took the test in the winter, we want to see those kids who were there in the winter to spring. So there are different ways that we can kind of change the filters of the assessment to see, like, who was all there from fall to spring.
And the other thing about the map is what I think is helpful is that divided into subgroups, so that you are dealing with achievement, because you can see where a child is having more difficulty with, and give more instruction in those particular areas. So it's great. Thank you.
Anyone else? 'cause I have a quick question for Principal Jackson.
Yes.
With regards to rolling out a new curriculum, that's a huge task. It can't be done in just like one meeting at the beginning of the year. Just say, oh, here's your curriculum, there you go, right? So can you kind of describe the process of rolling it out and then supporting teachers with a new curriculum as the school year goes along?
I would love to talk about that. Good thing I have my admin PD already. So what I will say is you're absolutely right. It's a process and it's going to happen not only, it's been happening already this summer, but it will be happening in the fall and all throughout the school year. I am very pleased to say it's not just for me to figure out because we do have district leadership who has been planning for this. So we have a coach who from CKLA will be coming into our schools weekly to meet with teachers, to observe them, give feedback, meet with them, troubleshoot questions. So not only, and for us, we were very fortunate that we had some planning time, and staff have already been going through the curriculum materials, becoming well-versed in what's required. It's a very different way of teaching literacy than what we've been doing with guided reading. And so we are very fortunate that we've had opportunities for staff to come in and work as teams to not just go through the materials, but really dive into the teacher manual. And we've heard from a lot of people who have experience with CKLA that they're going to need that teacher manual, which is different. I mean, back when I was teaching, I had my teacher manual, but I'm aging myself. So I think kind of going back to that structure where we are looking to our tool to support us as opposed to trying to have all of that information in our minds. But that ongoing weekly coaching will be critical, and the CIA team has already established that we'll have on our quarterly staff development days CKLA training for the majority of that time. So we'll have about, I think, 5 to 5.5 hours of CKLA training at every staff development day on top of the coaching, on top of that's why we're kind of focused on pacing guides and are we staying on track at the building level, because the district has done so much work to put together a supportive plan for us to roll out this curriculum with fidelity, but with support and lots of intentional coaching. And I think that's something, right, that we will, not only will we need, but it's good to see that we're going to have it, because we haven't always had that opportunity in the past, where you have someone who's an expert on it that's actually going into all of the buildings, helping make sure they can speak to the questions, because the last thing we want is for the teachers to get frustrated and think they can pivot. And so having that, not only the coach come in, but us as administrators going and doing our walkthroughs will help us see what they need, see how we can support, and how we as a PLC team can provide professional development during our Monday meetings to come back and respond to the needs as well. So I hope that answers your question, but the work was done
add
more
one
at the
thing?
district
Please.
level.
I think one key is our co-teaching model that we're shifting to as well. So some of our forward thinking in terms of shifting how we're using our literacy interventionists and our instructional coaches. Those co-teachers will be in classrooms during the CKLA time. And that was very intentional to have them in those spaces to not only support new teachers and long-term subs, but to be an additional adult in the room as they roll out this curriculum with fidelity. So we've spent a lot of time this summer talking about schedules and finding, making sure that we're able to have a co-teacher work with all the teachers that need it the most in the daily schedule during the literacy time, so.
That's great. Here's one more question with regards to mobility. I guess the conversation kind of brought this up. I know that other districts, I think particular Champaign also uses MAP, if I understand correctly. When a student transfers from one district to the other, can their MAP data come across at all? Is that at all useful to our district if somebody from Champaign moves in, like, in January, and can we get that data?
Want me to answer? Okay.
That's not
It doesn't transfer over like that. You can, when you request records, you can ask for the MAP data. But usually protocol is when students come, we test them so that we have our own data for students in our system. And so if you start in, I don't know, November, right, we would make sure that you're within that winter testing period, or sometimes if we really need data on a student, especially if there are some concerns, we'll just test them.
Thank you. Anybody else?
We can check into maybe a data exchange for map data, because it's not student, it's the same student data on both sides of, right?
I think anything that we could use to help us it would be great. But I don't want to put any undue burden on your already limited resources. But uh, anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank
really
you.
excited to see how this follows up. Our next study topic is Tiger Academy and alternative education update. Dr. Wiemelt.
Thank you, and good evening. I've invited some colleagues to join me as well. So we will get started right away. Thank you again for the opportunity to present on Tiger Academy and the programming that we have here. It's always fun to present on Tiger Academy because of the things that we're doing and the excitement and success that we've seen, right? And so I'm Dr. Joe Wiemelt. So my role, as you know, is secondary multilingual programs is part of my role, and secondary alternative education is the other half of my role. And I lead and run Tiger Academy and also work with alternative placements to other alternative programs in the region, so the READY program and other programs like that for our students with Urbana School District. And I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Natalie Bretz. I am the Curriculum and Grant Coordinator at Tiger Academy. So one of my roles is managing the budgets and the grant requirements for our funding that provides services to Tiger Academy. I also work with the curriculum and instructional aspect of Tiger Academy, and I also teach a few classes here as well.
And I'm Melissa Leidy, and I teach all things math at Tiger Academy.
I should also mention I teach a class here too. So last year I taught middle school science. This year I get to teach middle school math because Miss Leidy is picking up an extra section of high school math. So she'll be teaching, well, we're going to get into that, but 3 different classes of high school math this year. So overview of our programs and of our presentation this evening. We are just going to do a review of this past school year primarily, with a little bit of highlighting of what our plans are for this coming school year. We have 2 main programs that we run out of this building, and we share this building with adult education, as you're aware. So the back half, well, this room and the back half of this building is adult education. We share this room with adult ed as well as one other room and the kitchen. And then the front half of this building is Tiger Academy Alternative Education. The other building is all adult education, so it's a shared space. Within this shared space, we run an after-school program called the Freedom School Program. It also has a summer component as well. And then we also run the Tiger Academy Alternative Education Program that serves Urbana Middle School and Urbana High School youth, in addition to programming that's provided at the READY program and other alternative sites in our region. And lastly, we'll provide a real quick overview of a program evaluation that we embarked on this year with Southern Illinois University at Carbondale as a part of one of our grant reporting procedures. It was an optional opportunity to be a part of a program evaluation, but we wanted to be a part of that to improve our programming, and then Q&A at the end. So we'll start off. This is an overview of the staff from this past school year and a picture of us. So the picture in the bottom right is our Tiger Academy daytime staff from last year. So you can see Ms. Bretz and Ms. Leidy and myself, plus 3 other staff members. So I'll just highlight a few of them who aren't here this evening. So our social emotional learning specialist, Brianna McKenzie. We already introduced Melissa and Natalie. Our student family community support specialist from last year is Lisa Brewer. This year that will be JJ Elvire, who is listed down below. So he was a teaching assistant this past year. He'll be moving into that specialist role this year. Our Restore Youth facilitator and instructional leader is Domisha Nunn. And we have a special education teacher who teaches a 6th assignment from Urbana High School, Emily Carter, that also teaches with us here and provides direct services to students with IEPs that attend our program. The Freedom School program, as you can see there, I won't go through every name, but a lot of the same names are listed at Tiger Academy and in Freedom School, with the addition of a few other people. And so that's the program. Again, that is the after-school program and the summer program. So I'm just going to highlight a little bit as a real quick reminder of our timeline. As you recall, in the spring of 2022 is when the district decided to post for a director of alternative education and started making plans to create Tiger Academy and alternative education within the district, as well as then that's when the process of grant writing started. So if you don't know, or maybe you do, but all of our programming is grant funded, and it's mostly grants outside of the realm of education. So we have several anti-violence grants, violence prevention grants, the Freedom School grant, which is housed under ISB, and some other local revenues, which we'll get into later in the presentation. By summer of 2022, we started the planning process. We had received 3 of the 4 grants that we applied for. We started the transition, as you remember, of these buildings that used to be Comcast and Domino's now to educational spaces, which is exciting. In November of 2022, we started the Freedom School program after school. And then in January of 23, so 2 school years ago, we started the daytime alternative programming. So this past year, we rolled over several of our grants into year 2, plus a new grant this year from this past year. And so we were able to increase staff, and we were able to increase the number of students. So the first year, we had a total of, I think it was 18 students that we served across middle school and high school. And last year, we got up to 34, I think it's on here, by the end of the year that we had served. And so we'll highlight a little bit more of that. But that's the current timeline of when we started and where we're at now. I'm going to do a few slides around around Freedom School, and then I'll let Ms. Bretz talk more about the daytime Tiger Academy program. So the Freedom School program this past year served a total of 56 students, high schoolers. So the Freedom School program is just for high school. We had 104 different activities across the school year that were implemented, 203 total hours of direct service to students, and it ranged every night from 15 to 30 students on average. The services that we provided in that program is a lot of academic support and tutoring, mentoring with local agencies and partners that came in and provided mentorship, and then the rest that's listed there: financial literacy, work around restorative practices and conflict resolution. We had once a week, we had less formal lessons on Black excellence and Black history as it relates to the history of Freedom School movement. And how those correlate together. A big emphasis on social emotional learning and life skills development. Also a big, every Wednesday we worked on service learning. And so we'll have a few slides and highlights there around service learning. But the picture that you see on the bottom are a few of our students with Miss Nunn in the middle who received the mayoral recognition for service learning hours. That was actually 2 years ago, but we had pictures this past year as well that's coming up. So here's another picture. So we just have a few slides of pictures. So this was from this past year. These students, many of our students had over 100 hours of service learning in the community over the course of the school year and into the summer. So that's a picture with the mayor. And I think Dr. Ari Tatum's in there. And a lot of those are our high school Freedom School students. We just want to highlight a few of our community partners. The Park District has been a great partner with us the past several years. UNCC is a great partner as well, and so on and so forth. I think we started a new partnership this year with CU Church and the National Youth Advocate Program, which both are providing direct services to our students around mentoring and tutoring. And actually the CU Church is coming back soon to help us develop a basketball court out front. We have a basketball hoop, but they're going to help us paint lines and create a more inviting space for our students to enjoy basketball. So there's that was a picture there of service learning at Salt and Light. We oftentimes would have students go and just help sort the donations and provide direct service to Salt and Light as they were organizing their equipment and everything that was donated to them. Here's just a real quick sample of the Freedom School program from after school. So the first 30 minutes of every day would be dedicated tutoring and homework. We had tutors from the U of I primarily that were coming in and providing direct services there. And then from 4 to 5, 5:30 was the programming. So that's when we brought in all of the different aspects of mentorship and service learning, et cetera. And we provided supper every night and a bus home as well as part of dismissal. That was a picture there with Carol Ammons. That was from 2 years ago. She was one of the leaders across the state that helped organize statewide funding for Freedom School programming. And so she came and visited us at the spring of 2023, I believe. And so that's a picture from there. Tracy Parsons, you see there in the middle from the Community Coalition, is a partner of ours and a supporter. And he, at each of the past 2 years, has paid for our female students and our female staff to go to Neal Street Blues as a part of a formal etiquette lessons and unit that they were working on how to engage in professional spaces. And so they would go and practice those professional lessons at Neal Street Blues, and Tracy Parsons would pay for it. as well as little TJ, who's kind of like our little sibling there in the middle. That's Miss Nunn's son. He tagged along that night. Just another picture. We did a lot of work with Chief Boone from the police department. He has come and worked with our students several times, and we have gone to the police department and we dropped off, I think it was in the fall of this past year, we brought in baked goods for the police department and fire department just as a token of appreciation for their services. And that was very well received. Aquina Lillard, who works for the city, also works for Freedom School and our Self-Made Kings program, so the connection with the city is very nice through her, and we appreciate that. A couple more pictures, I believe. This was a day of service learning. I think this was maybe I don't remember what this was called, Dr. Reed Tatum, but it was in this past spring, picking up.
Yeah, it was a cleanup day with
Just a cleanup day.
Yep, at UHS.
Perfect.
So the UHS student ambassadors, the PTSA student ambassadors
There we go.
organized
that, and so
yeah,
our
with the
students
mayor.
participated.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Our summer program that we had this past summer was is laid out here in terms of the schedule. So we focused a combination of college readiness, and we took some college visits around the Midwest. We had service learning days every Tuesday. This was during the month of June. College visits on Wednesdays, college readiness were on Mondays to prepare for that, and then career readiness on Thursdays. So the universities we visited this year were North Central University and Benedictine University. Last year, you may recall, we visited EIU, Harris Stowe State University, and Chicago State University. So they've seen a lot of different universities around Illinois and had some really good visits there. And we continue to support Salt and Light and the Park District. And I think I have this slide, and then it's you, right? Okay, so now we'll move into our daytime Tiger Academy program, the alternative program. This past year, we had 34 total students that we served. If you haven't been around the entire building, if you think about it, 34 students is actually quite a bit students to serve in an alternative setting in a building this size. So we really only have, we have 2 classrooms in the back east, one in the front room right in front of us, and then this room. And so with only 7 staff serving 34 students in a small space with high needs, was actually, we were pretty proud of ourselves for that. And we hope to continue to grow that each year, and we'll talk about that later. But this is just a real quick overview of our students that we served. So we had 21 high school students this year. It was actually the opposite. Our first year, we mostly had middle schoolers. This past year, we ended up with more high schoolers than middle schoolers, primarily because we had a lot more high schoolers taking, I don't know if taking advantage of our program is the right phrase. I don't mean it negatively, but a lot of students who were behind in credits that came to us to get caught back up on credits towards graduation. In the first year, we just didn't have that fleshed out yet like we did this past year. Of those 34 students, 6 students had been expelled from the school district, and instead of fulfilling that expulsion at the Ready program or another program, we served them here, typically because we try to, as you know, not have students that were involved in the same conflict be at the same school. So we would separate students. We would take one side of the conflict, and Ready would take the other side of the conflict, for example. And we also had 13 only attended TAs, so students who were not expelled. They were voluntarily placed at Tiger Academy, but they only attended Tiger Academy and not Urbana Middle School or Urbana High School. The rest of the students, 34 minus 19, so 15 students, attended partial days at UMS, UHS, partial days with us. The original intent of our program was to be like a tier 3.5 intervention, where we would serve them before reaching the point of expulsion, which is still a big portion of our students, but we also do have students who have reached expulsion that we serve as well. That's the racial demographics of our students, and we did have one student this past year who came to us because she was expecting a baby at the end of the school year and went to the counselor's office to drop out in December. And the counselor called me. I ran over because I knew the student from when I was principal at Urbana Middle School, and we convinced her to try Tiger Academy, and she just flourished here. And she'll be coming back to us now with an infant at home, but she is on track to graduate, and she is on the right path right now, and so we're really proud of her. We have we have a few students that are in the process of possibly coming to Tiger Academy this year who are also expecting as young teenage mothers. So we are very fortunate to be able to have this program to help them continue to fulfill their high school graduation requirements, regardless of the circumstances that they are in. And so we are very proud of that. We had 10 students with formal individualized education plans for special education, 3 with 504. 6 of our students were English language learners. Here again is our staff that we already highlighted from before. This is a picture of Miss Leidy working with one of our students. And so at the end of the day, and then there's tutors around working with other students. We reserve the last hour of each day typically to just be homework time, lab time, for students to be working on getting caught up with their classes and their credits, et cetera. So that's what you see there in that picture.
Before Joe goes on, I
Yes.
want to just give a shout out to, on this slide, because I think it's really important to talk about the impact. Tiger Academy graduated a student who's been
Yes.
here for the last 2 years, who otherwise, without this program, would not have graduated. And
Yes.
that was a huge celebration.
Yep. Yeah, we actually had two
Two.
this year
Two,
that
that's
graduated.
right.
One that graduated mid-year.
Yep.
So she came to us supposed to be a senior. She was in junior status, and she worked so hard on getting caught up and recapturing her credits that she graduated in December. She just buckled down and worked hard, and she was here 8 to 3 every day, just knocking out classes, which was really exciting to see. And now her brother's coming to us because her mom's like, we're getting the brother there too. Go ahead.
I'll forget this so I don't ask. Now, when you say capture credit, do they have to attend for a certain amount of hours in order to do that, or can they just do work at their own pace?
It's a combination of the two that we offer. So some of the classes they take with us, and it's the full semester in order to get the credit. And some of them are the online Apex credit recovery classes that are self-paced. And she did a lot of the online Apex credit recovery self-paced classes, which we only offer those credit recovery-wise if they've already taken the class and failed it. So then there's that process of the self-paced online classes. You can also take them for credit attainment, but it does take a little bit longer. The formatting's a little different in the classes. So I'm going to pass this to Natalie.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Oh,
run
yeah,
it?
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the highlights that I wanted to include in this presentation is the why we work. Like, why do we work for students like the ones that we were just talking about? I think the biggest reason is that we have a low student-to-staff ratio. So for students who have trouble in their home school environment because of distractions or peer conflict or conflict with staff, we don't have that here because we have such a low student-to-staff ratio. We have fewer peer distractions, we have fewer transitions. A lot of students struggle going from first period to second period to third period, having a different teacher each period with different expectations and so forth. And you know, we have that small environment here where we are always on the same page. We have individualized schedules designed to meet student-specific needs. So if we have a student who just needs to take a math class, we have a math teacher that they can do that with here, and then they can spend the rest of their day at their home school doing the other classes that they need to take. So we can really individualize and be flexible with our schedules. In terms of environment, not only do we have a more social, emotionally supportive environment, but we also have a more comfortable environment. You've seen our couches, our stools, our bean bags. Students just feel more comfortable here. They can turn the lights down, they can lay on the couch with their Chromebook, and they just feel more relaxed in this setting.
We really try to emphasize non-traditional learning spaces here. And for a lot of students, the traditional learning space has not been effective. And so that's why we try to create all kinds of different opportunities for students.
And so you asked a little bit about the curriculum and the credit recovery. So our students who are here for credit recovery are using an online program called Apex Learning. And if they, like Dr. Wemelt said, if they failed the course, they can retake it in this credit recovery format. They can also take a credit attainment class in this format, but it is all self-paced with assessments online and reading materials online. We do offer in-person classes that you can see here. We all co-teach in this setting, so we might have a certified math teacher, but we also have another support staff in that class with her, where we're all co-teaching, we're all supporting the learning that's happening. I want to highlight Miss Leidy for a second because she has really tried to take an out-of-the-box approach to teaching math to support our learners here at Tiger Academy. Has done a lot more with being hands-on, interactive, engaging, doing a lot of game-based lessons, and our students are really enjoying math
Well,
as much as they
I'm sure.
can. Enjoying more so than maybe a traditional way to teach math. So I just wanted to give Miss Lighty a shout out there.
And Miss Lighty was recognized by the News Gazette as a Teacher of the
That's
Week
right.
this year because of that work that Miss Brett's just described. So, a shout out
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've
Good there.
we've used some of our grant funding to purchase different curriculum that we have highlighted here. I don't need to read through all of it. And sometimes our students, though, will be working on their own, but they are working on classes through Google Classroom from instructors at the middle school or the high school. So we have a very flexible model. We try to have as many students doing in-person classes as possible. They're more engaged that way. Students work better that way. But our students who work well independently, this model works for them too.
And I want to highlight that Google Classroom option just to make sure that's really clear, because that's a really nice feature that we do sometimes when a student, if we don't offer this class, for example, or we don't have a licensed teacher in that area, but the student needs to be here with us during that class period for a variety of different reasons, we keep them connected to that teacher, and they do that curriculum with that teacher's overview and oversight online, but we facilitate it here in person. So that allows for students to continue studying a foreign language, for example, or taking a certain type of history class that we don't offer, that we don't have like a specialist in that area, but they can continue with the curriculum and get Urbana High School credit, but it's just kind of funneled through us. And so that's also a really nice feature for students when they're partially or dually enrolled between UHS, UMS, and Tiger Academy.
So does that mean they're seeing the class as it's being taught at that building?
Not typically. We tried that once where they were zooming in, and that didn't work well. But what the teachers will do is, so they'll post the week's activities, the week's PowerPoints, or the week's assignments in Google Classroom, and the students will watch those videos or review the PowerPoints and do the work here, and just stay in communication with the teacher. And full credit to the teachers from UMS and UHS who do that. Oftentimes we'll come over and just check in with the student every so often, make sure they're following along. We do this, health was the class I couldn't think of. High school health, which is a graduation requirement, a full semester. We have a high school health teacher that's fabulous in working with students through the Google Classroom option, because we aren't licensed to teach health, and so she teaches it and comes over and checks in with them regularly, or at least connects with us online, and that's a really effective way. We've gotten students through that class doing that. So.
Another focus that we have here is on our social emotional learning development. So we try to balance the high academic expectations with strong social emotional support. Students meet with our SEL specialist weekly, and then we also do a daily advisory schedule that we've modeled after how the middle school does theirs. And you can see we have different activities that we try to do daily that just really creates that positive community here. Our students are able to share information with each other and really learn each other, and that just makes our environment more comfortable and collaborative overall. All of our students also have long-term goals that they set, and I try to typically meet with them monthly to review their data. So we look at their attendance data, we look at their grades, we look at their credits, we look at their behavior, discipline referrals, etc. And every month we do a check-in. I use Panorama for that to enter the data when we meet together, and then we continue to refine those goals as we move throughout the school year.
I'll give a shout out to Ms. Bretz on those individual case plans that she manages. She does a wonderful job with that. But what that means is every student has basically an individualized plan, and we monitor those short-term, long-term goals together with them. And that was one thing that the program evaluators from SIUC highlighted as a strong strength of the programming, is that students are able to see their progress tangibly every month by reviewing those plans and setting new goals. Parents can review those. But they're all different. They're all individualized, which is what makes Tiger Academy unique specifically. And that picture
I was going to say.
Yeah, that picture is of our promotion day. So that was not all of the students that were promoted or graduated, but some of them just in that picture. Dr. Arteta mentioned one of the students would not have graduated if he wouldn't have come here. He came here in March-ish because he was, it was right after spring break. And he was at the at the very end, he had several Fs, and he needed to pass all of his classes to graduate, and so he came to us for the last 2 periods of the day or 3 periods of the day, just to buckle down and focus, and he was able to do that. And very, very proud of him. He was proud of himself, and his family very proud. And I will say there's a couple students in that picture that probably would not have graduated, been promoted, have not been successful in school at all. One of them, his mom told me that this was the best school year he's ever had in school, and his whole degree, and he was an 8th grader, and his whole educational background, which was a huge success for us to see.
So some student outcomes, well, we're talking about data. We do a really strong push here for all of our students to take the Panorama survey 3 times a year, and also the MAP assessment 3 times a year. So we showed that 72% of our Tiger Academy daytime students improved their self-management and social awareness skills according to the pre and post data, which I think is huge. So that's a celebration, and also that's one celebration. We don't always have celebrations. Our attendance rate is not strong. A lot of the students that we have at Tiger Academy have struggled with attendance their whole educational career, and they continue to struggle with it here, even though they like us here and they feel more comfortable here, they feel more supported here. They don't, not all of their attendance has greatly matched that feeling. Some of them have, but overall, on an average, we still have a pretty low attendance rate. So that's going to be an area of focus for us this school year.
Next time you're at Ambucks Park, if you see some of the new trees that are planted, that was Tiger Academy students and Dr. Weemelt that planted those trees. So just FYI,
And
that was on Arbor Day.
And one of the students in this picture skipped every single class at UHS every single day, and when they were referred to this school, to Tiger Academy, they came every day. They skipped every period at UHS, but they came here every day and they worked.
And he planted a tree.
And he planted a tree. So more data. I mean, this is a lot of information, so you can take some time to read through it, but this is just some data about academics. We had 64% of our students improved their GPA while here. We had 2 seniors graduate. We had many of our students improved on the number of credits they needed to graduate high school. Most are still behind because they started so far behind with us. But we did have another student I can give a shout out to. She started the school year should have been a sophomore. She was a freshman status with only 4 credits. So this year she will be a true junior. So she jumped from freshman to junior here. And so we have a lot of success stories like that. We also have students who continue to fail classes while they're here. So this is just some more detailed data that we collect. And we collect this data because of the grant reports that we have to report to them, but it's also helpful for us to improve our program here. I did interview some of our students at the end of the school year, and so overall, this is kind of a general consensus of what students have been feeling. They've been feeling more positive, more connected, more respected by our staff. They feel more supported here. The student who's on the slide here said that she had improved her attitude and perspective on school, and that Tiger Academy helped her better herself. So just overall, students are feeling generally happy about Tiger Academy.
I think that was, maybe.
The big button is supposed to push the slide.
Okay. That's okay. Okay, I was like, am I doing something right? Okay, this is back to me. So that's just a real quick overview of our programming. I just want to talk a little bit about this coming school year. So we are fortunate to still have year 3 of some of our grants that we're rolling over into this year. We're able to keep the same number of staff that we had last year, this year. Unfortunately, this is the last year for most of the all of the grants actually that we have. So we are kind of up in the air what funding will look like for next school year and beyond, but we have at least enough funding to get us through this year with the same level of staffing. The Freedom School grant is ending, and it's actually ended already, but they have allowed us to continue what hasn't been spent through December. So we're going to keep a little bit of Freedom School programming going maybe once a week or a couple times a month up until December, and then that after-school programming, unfortunately, has to go away. But we will be continuing to look for additional grant dollars to continue us funding. But that's just a kind of an FYI and foreshadowing of where things currently stand financially. The continuation of our community partners will be important and still a big priority of ours. Based on our current staffing, we do believe we can serve up to 40 students during the day, so we're hoping to be able to grow up to that amount. Right now, we're starting the school year with an anticipated 26 students as of today. The pro and con of doing good work is that families are calling, asking how to get their child here, and when you have someone like people like us that have kind of soft hearts, it's hard to tell families no. So we already have 26 to start the year. Last year, I think we started the year with 13. So we anticipate to continue growing. But at some point, we're going to have to say no to maintain the integrity of what alternative programming has to be for smaller learning environments.
And we are a program. We're an intervention program.
Yeah.
We're not our own school. So
Yeah.
we have to, we don't, it just makes it more challenging when we're looking at enrollment because we have to remember that we are an intervention program.
Yeah. We are going to be implementing AVID, becoming an AVID program this year, and in addition or along with UMS and UHS. And a big focus of ours is the student attendance piece and academic credits for all students. We want to improve our attendance for some of our students that really struggled with attendance last year. And here's just a real quick overview of the grants. I won't spend any time on it, but those are the funding sources that we have available and what they pay for. And all of that is going away after this year, so at least as of now. And then the last slide here is one slide about the program evaluation findings. The rest of the slides are an appendix that I'm not going to go through unless you want me to, but you can reference those. The overall highlight is the what's listed down at the bottom, the overarching conclusion. So that's from the external program evaluators through the R3 grant agency, which is the anti-violence grant, one of the anti-violence grants that we have. And so they broke it down into the program logic model, strengths, accomplishments, challenges and improvements, overarching research question summary and findings, and then the overarching conclusions. So you can see that. I won't read that to you. But we were very pleased with the year 1 evaluation, and year 2 evaluation is forthcoming this coming school year with SIUC as well. I'm going to skip through let me go back. This is just a nice logic model that highlights everything that we do. So everything that we provide in terms of services on the inputs, the activities that we do, what we hope to accomplish with our outputs, short-term outcomes, intermediate and long-term outcomes, assumptions and contextual factors. So it's just a nice visual to kind of capture everything that we do here. And that was from SIU. So I'm going to jump all the way to the end, which I believe is a question slide. So that's our formal presentation, and we'll take questions.
Thank you. Board members, anybody we have questions or comments?
Do you have
I'm
that
so-
number off the top of
The
your head?
cost operationally, to operate it,
Um,
operating costs.
yeah, I can pull it up real quick. What did you think? It's like 800, about 800,000.
100,000.
When you, of course, staffing is the most expensive as always, and then the grants in terms of the budgets around curriculum and materials and professional development, I think it comes out to right around 800,000.
And that's including our after-school Freedom School program, so that's not including our daytime program. So it's actually less than that if we took out the after-school program. So that's just looking at all of our grants and our budgets for our grants. It's just kind of a rough.
Okay, so about 100,000 for the daytime program.
More than that. No, more than that.
What, okay,
Yeah,
so
'cause
then I
that's-
didn't understand, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No. So I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I was asked this question earlier, and I think it was between 700 and 800,000 operating costs for the school year.
That's for daytime,
Daytime
and
and
evening
after school and
summer.
summer.
Yeah.
All of our staffing, all of our curriculum, all of our equipment, our materials, everything.
The Freedom School grant I know was 350,000 over 3 years. The R3 grant was approximately $100,000. No, it was $180,000 over each year.
2 years.
2 years.
And then the IDHS grant
Was 170.
Mhm.
So it's over 500,000. We can get the exact number and I can email it to you. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
First of all, congratulations. It seems like kids are having fun and you guys are enjoying your job. Kudos for that. Other thing is like, if the grants are gonna end this year, are you guys applying for something else? That is something that the board can do for support this program, because it seems like you guys are being successful.
We are actively looking for grants to write. We're hoping that the grants that we have now provide another round of funding. They haven't specifically said that yet, that they will.
So I
but-
just sent you
Oh,
the
you did?
Imagine No-Fo while we were sitting here talking.
Oh, good.
Was that the daytime or after school one?
This is the daytime one.
Okay, great. So
Yeah.
that they start to come out, right? And so we will be actively writing. One of Natalie's big key responsibilities of her job is grant writing and grant management. So we'll be working together on those with the district grant office as well. But in terms of board, of course, board allocating funds to support the program is always welcome.
Other thing, you guys have a plan B for, because it seems like you guys are growing and it's such a small program, but it seems like it's growing and it's a need that we have for kids. Do you start making a program or some ideas of how this is going to extend?
We have not had any of those initial discussions as a team. I think that would be something that would need to be done with the district office and Dr. Harvey Tatum and potentially the board as well, because that would go beyond, I think, what we can do in this building. At some point, there's got to be a cap to the total number of students in this building. But I think the type of services that we're providing are really beneficial and important. And there's a whole lot more students that would benefit from being here than what we're currently serving. But also, I think we need to keep working on strengthening what we're doing at UMS and UHS as well. Like, it has to be both. And so we have just been focusing on maintaining what we've been doing, but there needs to be some dedicated planning for the future still.
Like one quick comment. I mean, when the district expels a student, that student goes to Ready. The district sends money to Ready to help pay for the education of that student, but we do not do a similar thing when that happens for Tiger Academy. So, you know, maybe that's something we as a board should discuss.
That makes sense.
If you were going to name two things that you do that you felt were the most helpful for students, what would you say they were?
That's a good question.
And you've done a really nice job of hiring staff who students trust and respect, and they can push students in ways that they need to be pushed. And so we have a really good group here, and that's just kind of a, you know, a connection that you can't really, you know, plan on having all the time.
What we talk about a lot, and I remind myself and I remind our team of regularly when we're frustrated, because a lot of the students that we serve can be really challenging to work with, right? There's a reason that they're coming to Tiger Academy.
And they're all here together.
And they're all here together, right? And so what I remind us is that we all signed up for this specific type of job. And what Ms. Bretz was just sharing, our team is really strong at building relationships with students, and while also maintaining really high expectations for achievement. And that's a really hard balance to find in general with secondary age students, but definitely with the students that we serve have had a history of bad experiences in school for whatever reason, a variety of different reasons. Our staff's very diverse. Our staff reflects the students that we serve racially, linguistically. Some of our staff have grown up with similar experiences to some of our students, so they can relate on a personal level. And I think that relationship piece, the representation of our staff mirroring our student demographics, are two really important things. High expectations with that. It's really hard to challenge this group of students with high expectations if there's no relationship. They will not do it, right? If they don't trust that there's a reason why. And so we've done a really good job at building that. But we also have a space, like when we designed the space, we wanted it to be totally different, where they don't have to come in and sit in a row and go from this room to this room after the bell ring. Like it's still structured, there's still expectations, but it's flexible. And I think that would be the other piece that's really important, is they don't fit the traditional setting, so we've made it non-traditional. So I would say the relationships, who our staff are as people and human beings, high expectation. I know you said 2, so I'm giving you more than 2. High expectations and just the flexibility of the setting.
It was great to hear about the successes of the students, but coming from the same background, working with students who didn't succeed in the regular school, I hope that in the future, what you will see and you'll be reinforced by is that you'll see students as they're older and how they're contributing to our community and to their families. And I hope you have those successes as well.
Yeah, us too. Thank you.
One more question. I guess, as if you have enough on your plate, I mean, are you considering putting together a presentation or a paper with regards to the work you've done here? Because I think it's exemplary and could be shown as an example for other districts to follow.
I haven't thought about that, but maybe our collaboration with the researchers from SIUC could be an opportunity there. I used to do a lot of that when I was in the middle of my doctoral work and right after that, and it's a lot of work. But and also, well, I won't go on my soapbox around that. But I think it's definitely a possibility, but I haven't thought much about that specifically. So.
And anyone else? Thank you all.
Thank
This
you.
has been a great
Appreciate it.
presentation. Our first administrative report tonight is on the memorandum of agreement with the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District. So is that you, Dr. Mather?
That's me, yep. So this is a standard MOU that we sign every year with CUPHD for our dental and sealant program. So it is very basic. It doesn't require a board signature, but because it is an agreement, we have been traditionally bringing it forward to the board level. So it basically outlines that we are providing a physical space. They are providing the dentists and the equipment and supplies, and they're doing the work, but we promote the program. We encourage our students and families to participate. We distribute their materials and make sure that we get parental consent forms filled out. And so they come to our buildings and we provide a space. We send home the form, and for any student who returns it, they get to work with one of the dentists. We put together a schedule and work with our administrators to make sure that they are providing supports to make sure that the dental clinics go off well. So on the back page is the 23-24 data for the school sealant program, just so you can see the number of students who participate. Again, not every student in the building participates. It is 100% parent consent driven, so we send home the forms and any parents that send it back participate. One thing that is really nice about the program is that we have seen students who have some significant decay, and we have some of our elementary students and even middle schoolers who have never been to a dentist, and they have so many needs. And so the dentists at CUPHD connect them with other dental programs like Smile Politely and places like that, who will deal with severe decay and really help the students get the cavity treatment that they need. And you know, sometimes it is pretty significant what they see, but if we didn't have this program, we would be missing those students. So it is a really really worthwhile program that we've had for many, many years. So I just wanted to bring it forward to the board, and I think we're having action.
Yeah, item
on it later.
9.5 is a
Yep.
request for approval of the memorandum of agreement.
Any
So-
questions about it? Okay. All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Our second administrative report is preliminary design for update of the UHS lighting tower to add a cell site. And this is delivered by John.
Yep, thanks, Paul. So I remember when I first came to the district, I'm going to say for the sake of the story, it was the first day I was here. One of the questions I got was, what can we do about the cell service at the middle school and the high school is just really abysmal. So I told them at that point that like that's not really the district's responsibility, but we would start working towards finding some solutions to that. So fortunately, this past year, almost about a year ago, AT&T put a microcell on the easement outside of the middle school that's helped a little bit with the AT&T service. The microcells don't really kind of get as far as the bigger ones, but that has alleviated some of the issues for the middle school. Today, I'm bringing the initial proposal for adding a macro cell onto one of the lighting towers at the athletic fields at the high school. So I'll go over to the, and I'm actually going to grab the clicker here real quick. So the process for this would be they'd be taking one of our existing lighting towers at the high school, so you can see, So here's one of the existing lighting towers. This is the one that's currently behind the press box, and they would be adding about an additional 20 feet onto it. It would actually be a new tower because of new structural requirements that would be about 6 feet away. So it would be about 20 foot higher, and then they would add a macro cell on top of that that would have service for Verizon plus one additional carrier. So right now they're in the preliminary stages. They've done some site surveys and some ground surveys of where the electrical and fiber would be coming from. The construction process would be they would need to pour new footings for this because of additional requirements for new towers going in. And then they would be trenching a small area, about 700 square feet, to an area under the bleachers from kind of behind there. We've worked with facilities and the UHS staff, and we found some area where, if you look on the drawings here, it's under the bleachers, like kind of under the front of the bleachers. They're currently doing a lot of storage kind of on the back end of the bleachers here, but the front end of the bleachers, there's nothing under there. And we were happy with the site survey that they thought they'd be able to fit all of their equipment in that unused area. So following that, they'd be doing some horizontal underground boring to put in the fiber and electrical kind of coming up. This wouldn't disturb any of the concrete or anything coming up from Michigan up to behind the concession stand and then back over to where that lighting tower is. Once they did that, they would bring in some equipment to remove the old tower, replace it with the new slightly larger tower, and then transfer all of our existing lighting and all of our existing, we have some extra radio equipment that we lease to some other companies on there as well, over to the new tower, and then we would be able to start utilizing that. The time frame they gave us is probably sometime in calendar year 25. They've told us that they're happy to work around sports schedules and make sure that this isn't happening when any other sporting events are going. So on the football side, there'd be zero disruption on that side. On the soccer side of the fields, there's currently some stands there that would probably need to get shifted over about 20 feet just so the break in the stands kind of lined up with the towers instead of right now it's right behind one of the towers. I will go to this other slide where you can see a little bit better the locations of where that would be. So this is the current football field on this side, and then those two little dots, that is where the existing tower is, and this is the new one about 6 feet over to the right. And I just wanted to, one of our board members, thank you, Board Member Hickson, sent some pictures that she took earlier today. So I'm not a graphic artist, so please forgive me, but this has kind of the existing tower. You can see that one in the middle kind of from the side view. And then if we click over, that would be kind of where the cellular tower would be on there, kind of on top of that existing location for that tower. And then here's a little bit from the back. So again, it's kind of that center one right behind the press box. And then it would have a little bit of an additional tower on top of there. So for the cost of this, all of the cost would be covered by the construction company of the construction, installation, boring, and equipment. And then for the lease, the long-term lease, we would need to negotiate with them, but there would be a payment to the district that would be in the very low 5 figures a year. So I could talk for a long time, but if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Yes, I have a question about safety and winds. Whose responsibility will be that falls into something?
I will check into that. I will say that the tower, because we've had some high winds with the existing towers about 100 feet. The new one will be about 120 feet. And the base will be about 40% larger, so it'll be a more substantial tower. If there are high winds, it would probably affect the other 2 lighting towers on that side before it would affect this one that are our existing lighting towers. We also have 3 on the north side of the field that are also all approximately that same height within 20 feet.
So when I went over and looked at this, there are 4 doors under the bleachers there, which I assumed we stored stuff in. No, I don't know. There are some doors. I figured it was stuff to take care of the fields.
Yeah,
things.
2 of them I think are for maintenance and grounds equipment. One of them is for IT, lighting, and the PA system. One of them's probably for the elevator. And then there's 2 fenced-in areas on the backside where they store the track pads and hurdles, some of floats.
That's down further.
Yeah, so those are kind of on the 2 ends, and then in the middle, this would not affect that at all. The space that they would be putting their equipment is, if I can go back to this slide. So all of that stuff that you were talking about, all of the doors and everything, is all kind of back here. So that's the 2 network room, electrical room, and then elevator room is on this side. And then those maintenance rooms are here. This is all in front of that. If you kind of walked through the little underneath breezeway, there's a fenced off section on the inside. You probably haven't noticed it because it's like kind of barely 6 feet on one side and tapers down to 4 foot on the other side. It's not really a suitable place for storing sports equipment. And like there's nothing currently in there, which is quite the feat for somewhere in Urbana school district that they haven't found to store something. But yeah, so that is the spot that they would be talking about using.
So, and the fiber is going in from here. And the utility, what are these things here on the picture?
So those are kind of, this again is under the bleachers where there's like a gate on one side that has kind of the privacy slats. But those would be outdoor metal enclosures, kind of similar to like what maybe a little taller ground transformer would look like. except they would have the cellular equipment in there. So in this one section, there was enough room for them to do, the primary tenant would be Verizon, and then they're required by the FCC and federal law to have some sort of capacity for a second tenant. So if there was a second tenant, they would have room on the other side of that area.
I read up on some of this, and some of what I read, and I know nothing about this, said that if you had two tenants, you could receive rent from both tenants. And so that would mean we would get more money from them?
That's something we would have to write into the lease, which we haven't started talking about that, but probably.
This lease agreement would be with Verizon?
The lease
Directly.
agreement would be with the tower company, which is Dolan. So there's, Verizon doesn't do most of the towers itself. It
The third
kind of
party.
contracts out. Nobody does anything
Right,
themselves
a
anymore.
third party.
So Verizon contracts with this company, and so the lease would be with them, and then they would have Verizon plus any other carriers.
So there'd be we can negotiate if there's a second tenant, I guess.
Yes,
the tower.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
Right now, this is just the
Preliminary,
preliminary
oh.
construction drawings, so I don't want to get too far down the rabbit
Yeah.
hole. This is gonna probably take another 8 to 12 months.
What kind of lease terms have they talked about? Any?
We have not
I mean, like
talked about
length-
lease terms
length
at all.
No. Okay.
But they did say it would be, again, somewhere in the low 5 figures with like a 5% annual
Increase.
increase.
For 10 years, who knows?
We
have no
haven't
idea.
talked about lease terms at all.
Our goal tonight was to just get an indication from the board that you were
Mhm.
okay with us continuing to move in this direction, so John can continue to have conversation. So we haven't worked out any of those details, but we didn't want to get too far down in this process without approval from the board that you were okay with us moving forward.
And that was also, I think, kind of an agreement with everybody based on things that have happened, like in the past, that before they kind of start spending some money to do
Mhm.
like bigger construction plans and like start developing lease agreements, that we at least get kind of a straw poll tonight of just kind
Gotcha.
of like a thumbs up to move forward with this process.
It doesn't affect they're all the kids or people around radiation and things like that, more like the construction time.
Yeah, the construction, they said that we could work around, so it would
Mhm.
either be like in the summer between sports. I was hoping to be able to do it in the winter, but that might be a little ambitious on the timeline. But it, yeah, won't affect sports.
So I'm curious, did someone contact you about renting the space, or did we contact them because of our difficulties at the middle school and high school with cell coverage?
We have been, since I started 3 years ago, actively contacting people on a regular basis, almost maybe annoyingly so, sorry.
So we don't have
Verizon.
Wi-Fi at the middle school and high school?
We have Wi-Fi everywhere. The issues are not everything works across Wi-Fi, particularly cellular devices. I don't know if you guys have been at the high school or middle school. I'll frequently leave the middle school, drive 3 blocks away, and then all of a sudden I'll get 3 text messages or 10 text messages, sometimes urgent. It's been a really consistent like safety and security issue. We've had some like outside threats and doxing and stuff of like our schools and things coming through. Students haven't been able to get to a hold of their parents. Police haven't been able to get a hold of other police. We implemented 2-factor as a requirement for our insurance company and our cybersecurity, and people can't get their 2-factor codes to log into their computers and their grade books. It's at a point where like cell service really isn't like a nicety anymore. It's kind of a necessity. And if people don't have it, it's kind of a big issue for people, especially in our buildings. And it's also, frankly, kind of an equity issue. There's a lot of like families and students who don't have access to high-speed Wi-Fi at home, and they really rely on cellular service to kind of be able to like get online and do all the things that they need to do.
This tower would improve the signals then. It wouldn't be just sort of it's not the brick on the outside of the building or the wires on the inside of the building keeping the cell signal from going in, is it?
No, so
Guaranteed
this
to-
will be, this tower will be operating in the 4G spectrum, which has a little more
A little bit more
penetration for bricks and like thick buildings. Some of our, as we've been doing construction over the summer, some of our buildings, Wheel, a couple blocks away, has some like 18, 24-inch concrete
Yeah.
walls. So the 4G spectrum typically has a little more penetration through kind of those thicker walls and buildings, and a little more penetration like out into the district and the community.
As opposed to a 5G.
Yeah. So there's kind of like there's the spectrum, so this will be operating in the 4G spectrum.
For the
It'll-
frequencies.
Yeah, the frequencies. And then as far as the functionality, it'll have some of the 5G functionality. And then it's like, we're just basically putting up the mast. So if in 10 years or 20 years, the
flop it
mast,
around.
you can kind of swap things in and out, just like you can swap in and out access points.
Updated technology.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I'm in favor of at least pursuing to see what kind of terms we can get on a lease. So I think this is a positive for the district. Unless anybody has voiced like strong opposition, I think we should just see where this goes. Okay. Well, to give you some ancient history, I mean, there was a proposal shortly after I joined the board 13 years ago to put a far bigger tower at the corner of Race and Michigan, and it did not pass board approval. But it was much bigger than this, and it was out on the corner as opposed to kind of hidden with one of our lighting towers. So this is much improved aesthetically from that proposal. So I'm in favor of seeing where this goes. So I think you have direction.
All right, thank you.
We do have a set of action items tonight. First up in 9.1 is a set of personnel items that is typically large for this time of year. Is there a motion to approve the personnel items? Sorry, is there a motion to approve?
I think Sid Lally is trying. I'll second her.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, you're right, it's roll call for this. My
was ready.
apologies. Roll call, please.
Member Hickson,
Yes.
Vice President Exum,
Yes.
President Pulowski.
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley,
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Staton.
Yes.
9.2 is a list of administrative personnel items. Is there a motion to accept them, approve of them?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
Vice President Exum,
Yes.
President Pulowski.
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley,
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Staton.
Yes.
Member Hickson.
Yes.
9.3 is approval of the 2024 Urbana High School graduates. My son desperately needs this, so the chair would entertain a motion. Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Member, President Pulowski, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley.
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Staton.
Yes.
Member Hickson.
Yes.
Vice President Exum.
Yes.
9.4 is approval of the continuous school improvement plans that were presented earlier. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? Let's do a roll call.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley.
Yes.
Member Jones.
Yes.
Member Staton.
Yes.
Member Hickson.
Yes.
Member Vice President Exum.
Yes.
President Pulowski.
Yes, and 9.5 is the memorandum of agreement with the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District that was discussed earlier in administrative reports.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moving to second, any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Baxley,
Yes?
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Staton,
Yes.
Member Hickson,
Yes.
Vice President Exum.
Yes.
President Pulowski,
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes.
Yeah, I think that's everybody. We will have a special, sorry, we will have an executive session at the close of this meeting, but there's nothing else planned on our docket in that regard. Superintendent's report.
Okay, as noted in the agenda, I do want to talk a little bit about board committees because we've already set up quite a few of the committee meetings for the year. And so depending on which board members are willing to volunteer for specific committees, we need to get you guys those invites so you can get them on your calendar. So you have at your seat a 24-25 draft. That says draft at the top. I put it at everybody's places before the meeting. So just for our new members, page 1 are the board committees that are covered under Board Policy 2150. And these are the committees that require us to follow and comply with Open Meetings Act. We have agendas. We post the meetings just like we normally would. So the first one is just an informational for you guys, the UEA Board Roundtable dates. That is, those are meetings that are bound by the contract, and we meet 3 times a year. I sent you a document, and I didn't print a copy for myself, but I emailed it to you guys earlier before our meeting, and the UEA Roundtable dates were added to that. It's all of the district committees. So I believe we have one in October, one in February, and one in April. So we'll get those on the rotating calendar. The next board committee is contract negotiations. We are in the middle of our current negotiated agreement with the union. However, there are times when we do have to negotiate for specific MOUs or other specific agreements where we might have the need to have board members participate. Paul, I kind of automatically, he was kind of voluntold, I think, to be. He has all the experience with negotiations and all of the history. And so when I got here tonight, I asked him if he would be willing to continue, and he was so graciously, so that's great. But it would be nice if we had one. This is one of the areas that we don't have to follow Open Meetings Act. So anytime we're negotiating a contract, we can have more than 2 board members participate. We typically have 2, but we could have more than 2 if there is great interest. So again, we are not entering into full contract negotiations this year. This would just be if there were a need throughout the year to bring together a couple board members with administration and with the union. Thank you, Ben. Awesome. And then the next couple on this page are standing board committees that also still are under the Open Meetings Act requirements. So the first one is also in our CBA and also board policy. So we have a district parent teacher advisory committee. I will be taking that over with Chastity Beckless, who was here tonight. This past year, Lola and Tori represented on the district parent teacher advisory committee. It meets 6 times a year, I'm sorry. In the evenings, we typically start around 6 o'clock. That is also morphed with our behavioral interventions committee, which is also part of board policy and part of our contract agreement with our teachers. So I don't know if Lola and Tori want to continue or if there's interest from someone else. Those meetings are usually from 6 to about 7:30. This year we'll be focusing on, we have really spent a lot of time talking about student discipline, which Chastity mentioned this evening. So we're really going to be spending a lot of time talking about that with the parents and teachers who join the committee. Okay, so Tori's willing to continue. Lola? Thank you, Jennifer. I didn't see her.
I didn't think you would
Oh,
look that way.
thank you, Lola. Awesome. And some consistency in that one is nice because we do kind of carry things over. Dr. Norton has been leading that the past year, so I will be kind of picking that up with Chastity and taking it back. The last board committee is our Facilities and Property Acquisitions Committee, and this is also an as-needed committee. However, we still notice the meetings, and we still have public input, and we notice them just like they would be board member meetings. We do have times where we do have to have some close conversation if we're talking about property leases or purchasing property or selling property. But these also would fall under OMA. Paul and Ben have been the representatives on that committee.
Yeah, that's true. And because it's
Yes.
noticed, we could have more than
We can have more.
more than two board members.
Absolutely.
But I would like to continue if possible.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you.
But if anybody else would like to
Anybody
join,
want to join? We can have more than 2 people. All right. Next, we're moving into something we call the Superintendent Working Committee. So these are committees that are not, do not fall under Board Policy 2150. So they are not under the realm of OMA. These are our working committees where we talk about more district curricular kinds of things, things that I would say are considered more administrative work and not as much board work. But we do like to have board representation. It's nice for board members to participate in these committees. And then when we have discussions during our regular meetings, we have board members who have been in the spaces and can kind of talk about the things that we've been talking about. Like Tori's been on the School Safety and District Crisis Committee for a couple years. And so when we have those conversations, it's nice to have board member perspective to be able to bring to the discussion with all the other members. So last year for the School Wellness Committee, we as you just approved in our personnel items, we will be looking for a new CFO. And so the School Wellness Committee falls under the CFO's range because the CFO in our district is in charge of our food service contract, and they work very closely with the food service directors. So Sherry has been participating in that, but I don't know if your schedule, based on when the meetings were happening, if that was
Right,
still
that's why
working for
I
you.
joined later on, and I was
Yes.
glad I did because I was able to develop a relationship with the food service, which helped the
Would you-
pantry, so I'd like to
You'd
continue.
like to continue?
As long as it's
Wonderful.
not at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Yes, and so we'll work on that, yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Tori, as I already mentioned, for example, has been a member on our district crisis. We've had more than one member, so there's years when Brenda Carter was here, she and Tori both participated. Ruth Ann participated when she was here. So this is a committee that meets right after school. It involves several administrators, so we do meet around 4 o'clock. We stay till about 5:30. We meet several times a year. It says 6 times, but I think we meet more than that. Actually, it's probably like more than once a month. Yeah. This is the team that looks at all of our crisis plans. That when we start talking about practicing for reunification. This is a collaborative committee where we have Urbana police representation at every single one of our meetings. Our SROs are part of these discussions at every meeting. We've tried to loop fire in. We're still working on that, but we always have an Urbana police person there. Either the deputy chief or somebody is always there to help with the crisis conversations. So Tori, I don't know if you want to continue. Is there anybody else that would like to join Tori on those? Jennifer? Okay. Anyone else? All right. The next committee is John's committee, District Technology Committee. This committee is the group that looks at our technology plan and also meets. You guys meet right after school, right, John? Around 4-ish? Yep. Zoom, so it's virtual. Ben and Sherry were the technology committee member representatives last year. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. You're really busy, Paul, but yes, it's nice that they're on Zoom, so you don't have to, so, okay. Program Council is our curriculum, focus committee. They, meet right after school. This year, we're only meeting, I think, 4 to 5 times, so it says 6 times, but we've scaled that back a little bit. This committee does make recommendations for curriculum. This year, we're going to be really looking at all the data that Chastity talked about tonight. We're going to be having conversations at the program council meetings with all of our district leaders. So our teacher leaders are there, department chairs, our grade level leaders. So this is a really focused group of really high capacity teachers with administrators and district staff. So who did that last year? Sitlali and Paul. Okay, understood.
I'd also like to do that.
Jennifer and Sherry. Okay. No, so Lolly said she's not, she's bowing out, so Jennifer and Sherry. Yep. And then District Equity Leadership Team. As you know, we had our equity audit. We're in year 2 of our equity action plan. We have a new leader now who has jumped right in and is really taking the bull by the horns, and it's been fantastic for me to have somebody really just leading us in this effort. Tori and Lola were our district equity leadership team members for the past year. This group did not meet very often, but now that Chastity is here, that is going to change. And so they probably will be meeting at least quarterly is what she told me, with board members and with all of the strands together. So we have those 5 strands. So I don't know, Tori, do you want to continue?
I can do it if it's not gonna be all day meetings.
Oh, no. They're going to
The
be
last
after
several
school.
were like
Yes.
8, 4:30, and like I didn't know
Yeah,
about them until
yeah.
like,
Yep.
so if
Yes, these are the meetings where we would have teachers come, people who are in the buildings come, so they are going to be after school. Okay. All right, we're moving quickly. Oh, Lola, you too? Man, I'm not looking. I need to turn my head. All right. Jennifer is helping me. And then these are some other ad hoc committees that meet as needed. So, District Calendar Committee, this is the year for us to bring forward a new calendar. We usually create 2 calendar years at a time. So Dr. Norton has been leading this, so I am going to be doing this with Dr. Taylor. She's going to help me out with the District Calendar Committee, and we will be starting this probably in late October, early November. It takes us a few months to develop the calendar, and like I said, we kind of create 1 year, we bring it forward, the board kind of looks at that year, and then we go back and mirror it as much as we can for a year 2. So, I don't think we had people last year, so this is
I'd be
up for
happy to
grabs.
do it.
Anyone who wants to do it? Sherry? Okay. Thank you. Health Insurance Committee, this is Angie. John is part of this committee and our new CFO, of course, because this is typically a very budget-driven conversation now, especially with the rising rates for health insurance. So this is a committee that also meets as needed in the springtime. And Paul was on that, but because of it including money, and it's kind of a negotiated thing that we do with the union. So I don't know if Paul wants to continue with that, if anybody else has any passion about helping us improve our health insurance rates.
This will be an easier year to be on the committee because we
Yes.
have a rate guarantee for next year, if
Ooh,
that's any
yay.
consolation. But we are switching to Blue Cross Blue Shield just because of the $2 million savings over the next couple years. So
And the Health Alliance increase was what, 15%, 18%? What was what they brought?
it
forward
was
to us?
it was going to be 15% this year and then 20% next year. So
Which is why we're switching the Blue Cross
Correct.
Blue Shield.
Mhm. But we are going to meet this fall just to kind of, with our Blue Cross Blue Shield partners. So those dates are on the committee list too.
Yeah.
And we meet via Zoom as well.
Oh, that's helpful. Anyone passionate about health insurance? If not, it's okay.
I mean, I'm willing to do it, but as giving other people an opportunity to jump in.
Mhm. Okay. You want to do that? No. Throw no. You know, it is really complicated. That's why Angie does that one. She and John and Katie had it on lockdown this year. They were amazing.
It's
So
really
that is
complicated.
not my gift. And then Beth Ladd leads our school-based health center advisory board. This was a committee that Ravi had represented the group on for the last few years. You know, being a physician and a doctor, it just made sense for him to be part of this group. So we haven't had anyone meeting with them recently since Ravi's not been here. So is there anyone else who, I think they meet quarterly, and we have a lot of conversations with Promise, the people who run our school-based health center program. And Beth Ladd just kind of facilitates the discussions around, usually it's around grants or how we can improve our service and get more families involved in taking advantage of the school-based health center. 4 meetings. Perfect, thank you. Oh, okay, Jennifer Hickson, awesome. And last but not least, Paul has already so graciously agreed.
I
to
have
our-
not.
Oh, Lori said that she thought you had. To be our delegate.
Not at the assembly. I can't go.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thank you. I thought Lori went back and listened to the tape. Okay, I forgot you're gonna be having a baby. Yes, Sherry's doing it. Yep. And then last is naming committee, and that is always just as on an as-needed basis when we have something brought forward from our board policy 4150 to name a facility. So that would be one that I would come back to the group and say, I need a rep for that, and then we would just see who wants to do it at that point. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. That went really quickly. Okay, John, you're driving for the. So last but not least, I know we have a couple just informational things. I do want to pass around a FAQ document that I received from UMS that we'll talk about at the end here about the cell phone change at UMS. So welcome back, everyone, is going to be coming back next week. So we have been advertising the back to school events at all of our buildings. So these have been posted. We need a couple more. There we go. Here are all the dates, and our schools are really, especially at the elementary level, doing whatever they can to greet and kind of bring all the new families in that have moved around from redistricting. So they've all planned activities at all of their back to school events. So if you're interested in joining one, you know, the OMA thing doesn't apply when you guys just show up and are there to have fun. As long as you're not talking about board business, you can go to all of these and just enjoy them together. Next, John. The DPW Community Walk is tomorrow. The weather is going to be so much better than it has been for the next 2 days. So I know we have about 76 people who have signed up to volunteer. We've created all the routes, and it is going to be a great night. We have a lot of community resource information to share with families, and a few little things in there for the kiddos to do in the bags. And we're going to be starting check-in at 5:30. If you didn't sign up and you still want to come, if you come, we will put you in a group. So we're really looking forward to that. We've been partnering with Stone Creek Church. They've been doing a lot. And they are going to be partnering in a really big way with DPW this year and have all kinds of activities. They're going to have a huge block party at their back to school night on August 13th. So come out for that. And next, John. opening day. So, board members, if you're attending opening day, please let us know, let Lori know so we can have a space for you. In the gym, up in the front, on the floor, you can get a good chair, you don't have to sit in the bleachers. That is next Tuesday, the 13th. We have the band. We really do kind of just celebrate the first day of school in a big way. We do have a keynote speaker this year. Her name is Susan Hintz. She has been coming, and I think Paul asked about the PD that we've been doing. She has been here 4 times since May and June. She was here just yesterday with about 50 teachers, and she has been working with us on co-teaching. So she is a co-teaching guru, and she goes all over the country and talks about co-teaching and engaging students. So she's going to be our speaker. So if you're interested and want to hear about that, let us know, and we'll have you a space set aside on the floor of the gym at UMS. We do our HR recognitions, and Paul will do his. You can't do it this year. Oh, that's okay. You can designate someone else.
Unfortunately, my work responsibilities
That's
are
okay.
going to keep me from being.
Yep.
I have a 9 o'clock meeting I have to go to.
That's okay. So if someone else wants to come and send well wishes to the teachers on the first day, let me know. Okay. All right. Thanks. And we will do that on behalf of Paul. That's all right. First day is August 15th for students. In Urbana, for new families who might be listening to this, we have half of our students come on the first day on the 15th. The other half of the kindergarten students come on the 16th. Your schools should be communicating to you which group you fall in and which day you should attend. So that information doesn't come from central office. We've already had some new kindergarten families say, which day do I go? And so schools really determine that. So if you're not sure and you have a kindergartner, please reach out to the school. The 1st through 5th graders come on the 15th. We have 6th grade designated day, 9th grade designated day, and everyone is in attendance on Monday, August 19th. Physicals, this is always a huge time of the year for immunizations and physicals. So we will be sharing this information out as much as we can in the next couple weeks, because there are deadlines in Illinois, and if you have not had your physical and immunization by certain dates, you are excluded from school. And we don't want anyone excluded, as we are really focusing on decreasing our chronic absenteeism this year. So if you know people who have kindergartners, 6th graders, or 9th graders, please, please, please direct them to the school-based health center if they don't already have their own primary doctor. And last but not least, the cell phone. So Ben kind of started something in June when he said he wanted to add to the topics. No, I'm just kidding. But it kind of did. And so, UMS approached me and said, after hearing the conversation that we would be talking about it at the board level, they initiated a conversation with me about doing implementing a phone-free space at UMS for next year. So they've been in conversations with a group called Yonder. So Yonder is, I wish I had some stock in Yonder right now. It's kind of like Zoom, where there are districts all over the country that are buying these pouches and implementing cell phone policies, so we can really focus on student learning and get in all the issues and I don't need to go over all of them with you. I've been sending you guys articles. I sent you an email that had all kinds of links and lots of articles, just so you could have a little more information about the pouches. So right now, they are having lots of discussions with Yonder. The middle school is coming up with a plan. We don't have a formal plan to share yet. They have sent communication to parents and staff that this is coming. We don't have a delivery date yet for the pouches. Our hope was to have them the first few days of school, but right now we're not sure, because they are in such high demand that we're competing with lots of other districts who are wanting to have the pouches by the first day of school. Mr. Cooper has scheduled an community roundtable for parents on August 28th from 5 to 6. I know that parents are going to have questions about, you know, how do I contact my student during the day? What happens if there's a safety incident or something happens how do I get to my student if they don't have their phone? So we want to be able to answer all of those questions for parents. And so they will be communicating about the community roundtable. They are probably going to have some information at their open house on August 21st. But if nothing else, they'll have some literature that families can take with them, and maybe some kind of feedback form where they can gather feedback and input via the open house. There are other activities that are going to be happening during open house, but it is a great time to get info from parents while they're there.
This is for middle school and high school?
Just middle school for right now. So middle school, this is kind of a big deal for us. So I think the high school staff want to see how it goes at UMS first. And at the high school, the use of cell phones are much more instructional, and students are using them in different ways. So not that it isn't also an issue at the high school, it is much, much more an issue right now at UMS, and with the distraction and with all kinds of things. Like, you guys have sat in some of those discipline sessions, so you see what the students are doing with their phones. And so we want them to focus on learning and not some of the other things that they're doing with their cell phones during the day. So more info to come on that. I am hoping to have UMS here at our next meeting to do a presentation and be able to share really specifically with the board and with parents on what this is going to look like on a day-to-day basis at our next meeting. But I just wanted to get it out kind of right now. I think there's been some messaging that has been out to families, but we all know a lot of our families don't check email. And it is summertime, so I was not really sure how many parents were even aware that this was happening. So I really wanted to mention it tonight, and then we'll have them come on at our next meeting to share more about the step-by-step of what it's going to look like. And that is it for me. And we have lots of ways to read. What were you going to say, Sherry?
I have a question for
Sure.
you regarding registration. How
Oh.
are we doing? We still have another week until students start school, but
So, I don't know that we.
I got some numbers from this morning. We're a little behind from where we were last year. Last year, I think we were close to like 4,700. This year, we're closer to 4,400 who've completed registration. Last year, I know we spent a lot of time during the summer kind of like getting things where parents were going in. So hopefully we'll have some people come through this last week.
what about Yankee Ridge School?
So right now, Yankee Ridge is the, I would say, highest registration rate. They have about 450 students, and they are going to be the biggest elementary school, which we anticipated already. We knew that was going to happen. So yeah, I think their registration rate is probably a little bit higher. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not positive about the
Yeah.
rate, but the number
The
is
number
definitely
is
higher.
definitely.
And I know the Lupe and her department have been tracking kind of the people who've dropped from the program, and it's been a very relatively small number. Like less than dozens. So like I think it's around 10 or 12 out of the
Yeah.
450. So very promising year for Yankee Ridge.
So, sorry. All right. If we're done with the superintendent's report, I'd like
Yep.
to read these FOIA requests that were completed. First from Tom Schroeder. All text messages sent or received by the superintendent that included public employees or public officials. The term text messages is inclusive of any similar sort or instant message services since 2 month, 1 month, 2 weeks, 1 week were denied. Messages from the 4 days of January 21st through 24th, 2024 are being requested. From Bob Ackerson and Kanika Minolta, all copier, print, production, printer leases, purchase, and service agreements. From Tom Schroeder, all communications sent or received by district administrative employees that contain the keywords FOIA, OMA, Freedom of Information, or open meetings, any variation of capitalization. Records are requested for the current school year. please exclude communication where a FOIA requester was a sender or a recipient. From Tom Schroeder. 1. Preliminary meeting minutes from the June 18th, 2024 board meeting. 2. Any meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and meeting recording of the Equity Task Force. 3. Any records or communications pertaining to the drafting of the educational equity policies, such as the manner of sharing revisions, names of contributors, and or revision history. From Vance V. Creative Energy, email addresses for school board members, trustees within the school district, email addresses and job titles of all current teachers within the school district, email addresses and job titles of all current principals within the school district, email addresses and job title of current superintendent, email addresses and job titles of all current administrative staff within the school district. From FOIA Buddy, most recent copy of invoices, bills, and subscription statements for all software, internet, phone, cellular, broadband, and cloud services from June 2023 to present include the most recent invoice for all related purchases for your agency and all associated agencies of multiple or control within the same entity. Provide the latest billing document for each vendor, even if outside the state range. And from Tom Schroeder, narrowed FOIA request. The FOIA officer is excluded from this request. The limitation regarding FOIA requesters is removed. The time period is narrowed to a single month. I am requesting all communications sent or received by the superintendent, assistant superintendents, directors, including executive, CTO, and CFO, that contain the keywords FOIA, OMA, Freedom of Information, or open meetings. Any variation of capitalization. Records are requested for the month of September 2023. And that is the list of completed FOIAs. It's now time for board reports. The first one being a continuation of our discussion from our last meeting, which is surrounding board goals and topics of study sessions. And I didn't bring, Laura, do you have a copy of what we discussed last time handy? Oh, there we go. Thank you.
I want to add something. So I last time I pointed out that it's not kind of fair for the Latino community to don't have the power of representation in the board just because they're no citizen. And I know the board can't make some pressure or do something about it. So I want to really go deep on that.
So you mean like that in terms of changing the state law
Yes,
so that we
like
can have
at least to have something, like create something to present to the state.
Sure. I mean, we could pass a referendum encouraging the state legislature to take that on. That's something that we could do as a board.
Would it make sense to maybe talk to the county clerk, or maybe they might help us with that, since
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
since one of the requirements to be able to even pick up a packet is to be a citizen? I don't know. I'm just thinking of where we would start that process with, maybe working with Aaron Ammons be a good place to start.
that's one way to do it. And the other way, yeah, I think you're right. Probably starting with the county clerk. And just try to in terms of think of an act of the board that could support such a change. I don't know if people have ideas, but we can certainly put this as a discussion topic at a meeting to figure out how to progress towards changing the law so that we can get increased representation.
You want to read the list? Want me to just read it real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So, Ben, cell phone policy, something we've already talked about, and that'll be an early study topic. Paul, examination of social media policy review. Sherry, kindergarten transition, supporting sixth grade transition, supporting kindergarten students coming from UECS. Looking at half-day and full-day programming, and the transition from kindergarten to first grade. From Sherry, getting parents involved throughout the district, address ways that parents can come to the schools for community events. Starting the strategic plan was brought up. From Jennifer, work on ideas on getting students to and from school. Could we have a van for people that don't live close enough to their school? Are there some positive ways that we can get people connected?
Wraparound services, we don't have, who brought that up? Sit Lolly, family engagement, recovering trust, improving our interaction with the community. Hopefully the strategic plan will help with that. Paul, presentation on industrial arts and trades. Lola, starting this summer to be more engaged with schools from the very beginning of the year. Sit Lally, a public statement scheduling a policy review. And I think that was maybe what you were talking about there because you brought that up last time, right? Or maybe not.
No,
Timing, okay. Public comments, thank you. Yes. Tori, technology use in the classroom. We haven't talked about that in quite a while. Sit Lally, violence in the schools. I'm not sure how the board can help with that, but what are some ways that we can prevent violence, especially at UMS? And then I just added our increased representation. I think that was it. Yep.
So,
So
yeah,
other
those are mostly
things.
discussion topics, but in terms of like specific accomplishments that you want the board to do in this academic year. I mean, the strategic plan is
A big one.
is front and center. Boy, after last year, I'd like to have a calmer, a smaller list. Just I think focusing on strategic plan is going to be most of it. But does anybody have specific policy changes or specific board actions that you want to take place this year? I mean, I guess the review of the citizen statement policy would be
That'll be a big one.
that'd be a goal.
Yeah. If I look at our the Board of Education goals, remember our goals are student achievement, making sure that we're enhancing the programming now that we have a dual language, multilingual program, facilities. We haven't had a full facilities review. Is this our year for the Bicentennial? Yes. This year. Next year, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's next year.
Because that'll be a full facility.
I think that's going to fall out of the strategic planning processes. We do need to do a top to bottom evaluation of future facilities projects. It's going to be a while before we can do anything big anyway, but we should use that time to plan out what we want to put on the roadmap.
The policy, but I certainly hope that we would get feedback and know how our redistricting has affected families and such, and to get update on the dual language school as well.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I guess now would be the time for any other board reports from individual board members. Does anybody have anything that they could report? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to enter closed session after a 10-minute recess to clear the room for the purposes of litigation or potential litigation against the district.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or discussion? No. Roll call, please.
Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Staton?
Yes.
Member Hickson?
Yes.
Vice President Exum?
Yes.
President Pulowski?
Yes.
Member Langendorf, yes. Member Baxley?
Yes.
After a 10-minute recess, we will be in closed session. There will be no action by the board following the closed session.
And I think they were both in there, John. Are they in there? Okay.
Is she gonna do a regular recording?